Elden Ring is my comfort game. I love that you can play however you want, and this game has fashion. No, not this kind of fashion. This kind of fashion. Turns out this beautiful blood-red dress buffs the power of dancing attacks. So I've decided to find out, can you beat Elden Ring with your dance skills only? The rules of this run are simple. I must defeat all Remembrance bosses including the DLC using only attacks that contain the word dance in their name. This armor set also buffs heavy attacks for a couple of weapons, but I feel like this goes against the spirit of the run, so I'm not including those. I am not allowed to damage bosses with summons, damaging consumables or magic. Basically, anything other than my crazy dance moves. Boss stupidity and environmental damage are okay though. After all, you wouldn't say no to some delicious cheese after a vigorous bout of dancing. With that out of the way, let's get to it. I picked the samurai starting class, named her Dancing Queen, declined a dance with some weirdo who seemed to have 2 left feet, and entered Limgrave. Before I do anything else, I need to get stronger. I grabbed everything that's not nailed down in Limgrave, Weeping Peninsula and Dragon Barrow, and after this red reminded me of my own mortality, I skipped and hopped around Stormvale to get to Liurnia. I allow myself to use regular R1s on this one scarab on the cliffside so we can start the run proper. This scarab dropped the first damage source I'm gonna be using in this run, Ash of War's Sword Dance. You can put it on a variety of slashing weapons, including our trusty Uchi. This Ash of War is a graceful and relatively quick 1-2 slash, which you can then follow up with a third downward slash. This is going to be our bread and butter skill for this run, but don't worry, there's plenty of variety yet to come. After all, a good dancer is nothing if not versatile. Before taking on Margit, who is the first gentleman on our dancing card for this evening, I decided to acquire a couple talismans that will further boost our damage. We helped Alexander out of his predicament and then waltzed all over his backside to get Warrior Jar Shard, a talisman that boosts the attack power of skills by 10%, which is extremely useful for this run. After all I'm using is skill damage, so it's basically Ritual Sword but with 100% uptime. Could I have waited to complete Alex's questline and get the 15% boost version instead? Yes, I could have. My dancing skills may be big, but my planning skills still suck. I upgraded the Sword Dance Uchigatana to +5 and used it to teach this adoring fan some manners. After that I talked to Yura to progress his quest and made my way to High Road Cave. My beloved red dress is not available until I get to the DLC, so I figured a talisman called the Blue Dancer Charm would serve as a temporary substitute, since I prefer dancing in the nude if I have no appropriate costume. And if my character is naked, this gives her a damage buff. With the Blue Dancer Charm kept close to my heart, it was time to finally dance with Margit. He is a fine partner for our dancing queen. The only thing that's bad about dancing with Margit is his chosen dance floor. Maybe it's just me, but bottomless pits on both sides of the ballroom is a severe dancing hazard, so I had to watch out for that. Margit himself has very generous openings, especially after his jump. You can do the whole 3-hit combo after this one. It took me a few tries, but Margit the Fell Omen, fell, and rewarded me with a talisman slot and some runes for the Dancing Queen to get healthier. Before proceeding to any other major bosses, I took a short detour to help Yura with the invasion in the academy. And promptly got exploded into a cloud of blood. I sure hope this unfortunate incident does not become the theme of this run. Thankfully, the invader had like 60 HP left at this point, so Yura managed to finish our Danse Trois while the pink mist I got turned into was still evaporating. We take those. After getting exploded into a blood cloud one more time and dancing off a cliff in the precipice, I thought, wait a second, I've got Dactus! And I took the elevator to Altus Plateau to activate Rudan's boss fight. My main goal at this point in the run was to get to the DLC early to lay my hands on the dress. To enter the Lands of Shadow, I needed to defeat 3 things: Rudan, Moog, and Skill Issue. That last one is gonna be difficult, so I'm starting with the easiest. But since I'm easily distracted, I first progressed Millicent's questline by introducing Commander O'Neill to some tasty borscht. I then paid a visit to the sealed tunnel for the Smith and Bell Baron 2 and killed the resident Onyx Lord. He has such low voice that he cannot handle even the simplest dance moves. Pathetic. Since I've heard there's a fun festival being held at the local castle in Florida, I got all excited and took the teleporter to join in the festivities. To my utter disappointment, there was zero dancing happening in the castle plaza, but I was told that the mightiest dancer of the Shattering was waiting for me at the beach, and sure enough, here he was. Fun fact, I looked up if there are any dances that are specifically performed at the beach or to beach music, and the one I found is called Carolina Shag? Well, I'm not here to Carolina Shag with Rodan, I'm here to destroy him with my moves. And the mightiest of them all is defeated by the Dancing Queen on her second try. This little victory got me emboldened with the flame of ambition, so I decided to do Vara's questline to get early access to Mogwin Palace and then the DLC. I also get the Blood Flame Blade incantation from a scarab near Rose Church, since Blade is very strong, and it pairs nicely with our Uchi. We ride to Wraith Blood Ruins, fully intended to just die to Magnus 3 times, but the grace and elegance of sword dance proves stronger than the brutish bestial incantations, netting us a somber 6 in the process. After dispatching the murderous brute, I switch it up a bit and murder an innocent maiden. I said murder. God damn it. Why am I capable of outspacing Lion's Claw but cannot for the life of me hit a stationary target? Twice. Anyway, we get the bloody cloth for the masked pervert and receive an invitation to a fancy ball held in the palace of Lord Moog. Or something like that, I didn't really listen. Upon arriving, I suddenly felt very underdressed for the occasion, and by underdressed I don't mean that I don't have my fancy dress, I mean that I'm underleveled and underprepared. So I turned my tail and went to get a few more items before tackling Moog. First, I used the leftover Rodan runes to level face just enough to use the Bloodflame Blade incantation to buff my sword dance. Then I ride all the way to the Second Church of America, and there's an invader here who will give me the two things I need at this point. Purifying Crystal Tear, which practically negates the damage from Moog's Nihil, and Eleonora's Pole Blade, which is another weapon that has a dance skill. I use our newly acquired weapon buff to outdance the Bloodblade Dancer and try out the moves a little. I don't have enough Dex or Arcane for it yet, but Rodan's Remembrance and a few poppable runes will give me just enough money to meet the Arcane requirement, while Radigan's Sword Seal takes care of Dex. With our new weapon at +6, I feel like I'm ready to fight stuff. On my way to the man himself, I got exploded into a blood cloud 2 steps away from the Grace, and I'm starting to sense a pattern here. I sure hope our next dancing partner does not do heavy bleed build-up or splatter blood flame all over the dance floor. Why do I smell blood flame? So, yeah, I quickly realized that I was not ready to dance with Moog just yet. Turns out, if you dance in the nude, it's very easy to cut your feet, and, well, other body parts, on sharp objects, like a giant spear, and consequently bleed. To death. My resistance to bleed is non-existent, so not only I needed a stronger weapon, but also more survivability. Since I was already here, I got a +10 Somberstone from a chest before the elevator, dropped down for a golden seed, then made my way back to the swamp, without resting at a Grace to double dip for the seed on the little island. While getting it, I got invaded by the nameless white mask, and you can already tell how it's gonna end by now. I will get my revenge, just you wait. After that embarrassing incident, I needed to restore my dignity, so it was time to enter the academy. I was hoping to find a ballet teacher in its walls, but all I got was this weird Ferris wheel ride and... eaten. Twice. Volcano Manor, a land of lava that burns your poor naked feet and your eyes out. I'm here for a few things, Somberstones and runes. I outdanced this fine fellow on my way to Godskin Noble and stepped onto the dance floor. Without changing my physic tier from that one miserable Moog attempt. Cool! Bloodblade Dance bleeds Noble pretty quickly, and if I dance fast enough, it can even break his poise. And that's where my advantages end. I'm still naked, and the skill still locks you into a very long animation. I got the Grace up here to shorten the run back and change my physic, which I promptly forgot to do, then it was back to Noble. My next attempts with the Bloodblade Dance went more smoothly than that first one, and during some of his attacks I could move out of his weapon's hitbox while performing the skill or its follow-up. However, my ultimate enemy was what it always is when you're doing that much damage. Greed. Also, if I lost lock-on even for a split second, it was all over for me. On the winning attempt, my noble partner and I performed a ring around the pillar for an ungodly amount of time, but by the end of it, my dancing skills and greed turned out to be superior, and he fell down. I said hello to Kyle, waving his glow sticks all over the place, got the Grace before Rykard for later, then finally picked up my Sober 7. With that and the 9 and 8 from Dragon Barrow, I finally upgraded Eleonora's Ball Blade to +9. I could have used the +10 stone from Mogwin, but I decided to hold on to it for now, in case I want to switch to a different weapon. And that will come to bite me in the ass later. The other upgrades I wanted to get before Moog are his shackle and a talisman that conveniently also can be acquired in the sewers. But the problem is you need 2 great runes to enter the capital, and I only have Verdance for now. Here I decided to engage in a little sequence break and to run warp my way into Leyndell via the transporter chest in the Whipping Peninsula. Don't worry, that doesn't mean we're skipping the Draconic Tree Sentinel. I have plans for him later. Melina decides she doesn't want me to see her anymore. Literally, and punishes me for my transgression with some Dark Souls 1 textures, but thankfully nothing a quick quit out cannot fix. I grab Moog's shackle with no incident whatsoever and enter Leyndell Catacombs. Here, Asgard quickly reminds me that I'm still just a paper bag filled with blood. And he does it twice. Thankfully, a +9 Eleonora's combined with the Beast Repellent Torch on my back make short work of him, and I get Lord of Blood's Exaltation as my prize. This talisman boosts attack power by 20% for 20 seconds after proccing blood loss, which, considering both weapons I have at my disposal right now do bleed, is going to be a great help in the upcoming fight. I test my newly upgraded dancing skills on Moog once again. The shackle provides 2 huge windows for me to unleash Bloodblade Dance on the boss, and the countdown allows me to stagger him for even more damage. However, once he enters phase 2, all bets are off. I managed to get another stagger right at the beginning of phase 2 and bring him back to half health. But Moog retaliates immediately, reminding me that I'm still just a squishy naked blood bag for him to punch. At this point I realized I don't even have my new talisman equipped, because I don't have enough talisman slots. So I take a detour to rectify that situation via a quick dance against Golden Godfrey. He has enough openings for sword dance, so just after a couple attempts he goes down. With the talisman equipped and a few more upgrade levels for my Uchi, I proceeded to throw myself at the brick wall that was Moog for several hours. But even with the faster animation of sword dance between Moog all over the place and me being very vulnerable to bleed, it just wasn't happening at the moment. I felt a little discouraged. Will I never defeat my skill issue? Will I never get the pretty dress from the DLC?
No, I just needed to get even stronger.
I left Moog B for now and returned above ground to pick up a few other weapons and talismans for this run. I also killed Runala, because it's easy, and I do a lot of damage. In the jail cave, I introduced a frenzied duelist to the concept of a dancing duel. And it's over. The exit of his arena actually leads to another weapon we're gonna be using, the Regalia of Eocade, and its skill, Eocade's Dancing Blade. Editor Panda here, so after completing the run I realized that there's a skip that allows you to get the Regalia without fighting the duelist, which means I could have gotten myself a usable weapon without killing that poor scarab that dropped sword dance. Whoops! Well, you always learn something new with this game. Eocade's is A-OK even at +0 on a blocking Cleanrot Knight, and I receive Winged Sword insignia for my troubles. This talisman buffs consecutive attacks, which means basically every dancing skill I'm using in this run. I upgraded the Regalia to +7 and tried Eocade's Dancing Blade on Godric. This skill consists of 2 parts, a corkscrew spin and a slash that is not a follow-up, and it can be charged, so what can I say? Godric is an early boss and he's a pretty slow dancer, so my current setup melts him in no time. There's another weapon in Elden Ring that shares the dancing skill with Regalia, Mariah's Executioner's Sword, which can be obtained from Elmer of the Briar over in Shaded Castle. The difference between them is that one is a straight sword and the other is a great sword. One scales with Dex and Arcane, the other mostly with Strength, and the range on Mariah seems to be bigger. Of course, one's range does not determine one's ability, but it may come in handy in a certain boss fight. Comment down below if you can guess which one. Anyway, after bamboozling another Cleanrot Knight and 2 dogs into a bottomless pit, I tried to outdance Elmer's Dancing Blade with my own, and promptly realized that sometimes range does matter. After a couple of objectively stupid attempts, I decided to stop corkscrewing around and just use Blood Flame-infused sword dance after each shield bash he does. With this approach, his big sword was mine in no time. No, this is not foreshadowing. Why are you asking? Speaking of red-headed ladies that can dance better than me with their arm tied behind their back, my girl Millicent needs Valkyrie's prosthesis from Shaded Castle, which means it's time for me to test my navigation skills, which are still terrible. After getting fire sparked and poisoned several times, I finally found the right chest, gave Millicent a hand, and joined a fun little dance party at this quaint village festival. The local party pooper, aka Goatskin Noble, got introduced to the joys of sword dance and decided to empathize with my experiences so far by exploding into a blood cloud. Millicent arrived late to the party, so I challenged her to a dance battle, which she lost. But her prosthesis will not only boost the damage of my consecutive attacks, but also give me +5 dex, so I will carry her dancing prowess with me, always. Now, since I felt kinda bad for getting access to Leyndell without fighting the Draconic Tree Sentinel, I decided to rectify this by taking him on using Aoka's Dancing Blade. After an initial burst of damage gave me high hopes, DTS showed me that it doesn't matter if I dance better. He's on a horse. It was here that I finally realized that you can actually cancel the not follow-up / part of the skill by rolling at the exact moment the corkscrew part ends, which made finding the openings in this fight much more manageable. And although on the winning attempt I ended up face tanking more than I wanted to, in the end DTS falls and I can proceed to Leyndell again. Before continuing, I dispatched Godric Phase 1 in this Everjail much in the same way as Godric Phases 1 and 2 in Stormvale. As a memento of our dance, he gave me Godfrey's Icon, a talisman that boosts the damage of charged skills. What do you think I did with it? Well, I immediately forgot about it until the very end of this run. You did not see anything. After definitely not dying to Ghost Loretta even once, please ignore those runes on the ground, I talked to Rani, who refused to dance with me because she felt her 2 pairs of arms gave her an unfair advantage. She did ask me to bring her a blade of some kind, probably to chop off that unfair extra pair, I don't know, I wasn't really listening, and there I was, going in the hole, to face my biggest challenge yet. Myself. Just kidding, she's a pushover. She cannot dance to save her life. Please point and laugh, everybody. Wait, no. I demonstrate the power of Bloodblade Dance to another pair of naked performers, get the finger chopper blade for Rani, and show the smooth here that you can cut a venison steak with a power drill. It manages to heal once, but Aoka's Dancing Blade proves to be superior, and we claim another remembrance for our collection. With Rani's quest done, we can proceed through the sewers towards Fake Moog, and the boss is locked behind him. Unlike his Lord of Blood version, this Moog only took me 2 attempts with a +22 Uchi. While it wasn't the cleanest fight, I'm just happy that the whole exploding into a blood cloud thing only happened once, and it wasn't fatal this time. Next on our card, Moog's little brother. Or is he big brother? I'm not sure the lore is clear on that one. I absolutely loved dancing with King Morgoth, last of all kings. He's much more agile now, but still gives me plenty of opportunities to take my turn leading. I wish I didn't do as much damage to him so we could dance a little longer. Oh well, it was fun while it lasted, but I have to say goodbye and move on to the next one. Parkour is not a dance, which explains why I'm generally bad at it. The only thing worse? Horse parkour! After that embarrassment, I felt the need to have a self-care moment and take a hot cleansing bath. It seems some fine dancing fellows scared my impromptu bathtub away from its original location, so I had no choice but to continue this way. So refreshing. Oh. Well, there goes my bath. After waddling through the lake of Borscht, our dancing queen was desperate to wash it off, but the only bathtub available got flushed down a whole waterfall of Borscht, leading me straight to Estelle. Since he is pretty susceptible to bleed, I chose to Bloodblade dance with him, and it proved very effective. 10 out of 10 would dance with the stars again. Since this weapon has proven to be an absolute NPC destroyer, I'm using it on Thea's champions as well. Turns out it works pretty well, even if there are 3 dancing partners vying for your attention at once. After a short rest in Thea's tender embrace, it was time to face Skinny Legs Gavarossax here. I honestly cannot say anything good about this fight. I hate it. Why don't you have lock-on points on your legs, you overgrown death lizard? Moving on. After an uneventful ride through the mountaintops, I arrived to Fire Giant's dancing arena. After getting smacked with his shield a couple times, I figured out that in Phase 1 you can basically Bloodblade dance on his ankles with abandon, while in Phase 2, Blood Flame infused sword dance is a safer option. That way you're not locked in a lengthy animation whenever he decides to show off his breakdancing skills and rolls away. Overall, I played super cautiously in Phase 2, so it took some time, but in the end, Fire Giant falls exhausted at our dancing queen's feet. With Fire Giant dead, his red braid and its flame dance will make a fine addition to my collection of moves. What am I saying? Have you heard of dirty dancing? Well, get ready for some garbage dancing, because this weapon skill is utter garbage. It takes ages to perform, it locks you in place, and you can only dodge out of it before the very last hit. The damage is garbage too. Granted, I barely have enough face to wield it, but still. Look at this. This is a +6 somber weapon that does fire damage on a Weeping Peninsula avatar, and it eats a ton of FP. The only thing it's good at is killing alterated tree spirits and earth tree avatars, who are very weak to fire, especially putrid ones. Just bait their toxic jump attack, roll to their back, and do the combo canceling that last hit. This should give you enough time to dodge almost any incoming attack. Well, at least I got all elemental tiers out of it. Maybe I'll find a major boss I can use this thing on later on in the run. Okay, with that whole side quest out of the way, I could no longer delay the inevitable. I had to defeat Mohg and my skill issue once and for all. This time, I activated Godric's Great Rune and wore the white mask to hopefully pass as one of Mohg's servants, so he wouldn't hit me as hard. I'm not sure how much these additions mattered in the end, but this is how our dance went. I waited for a good attack to use Shackle and do as much damage as I could while he was stunned. Then I used the low-profile movement of Bloodblade Dance to sneak in another combo while he was tracing, which staggered him. Another combo procced another bleed, and I had enough stamina left to dodge the duo. During a heal, I had to refill my mana bar, so I couldn't capitalize on it as much as I wanted, but there you go, another bleed proc. For second phase, I switched to the much faster sword dance, which now did notably more damage, then accidentally used the useless Shackle instead of my healing flask, barely survived, exploding into a blood cloud, and died anyway because of the blood loss micro stagger. Now, on the next attempt, I actually played worse during the first phase, leaving Mohg with more HP at the beginning of phase 2. Despite this, I kept dancing, with calm and poise worthy of a great dancer, never letting my mistakes affect my gracefulness, even when I felt disaster was imminent. And in the end, Mohg, Lord of Blood, fell before the elegance of sword dance. Finally, the way to the DLC and my beautiful attire was open. I will skip the Shadow Tree Fragment Collectathon part, because we all know that every Shadow of the Earth Tree playthrough starts with this log. My main goal here was to go down Ilak River to the Cerulean coast and once again jump in the hole, to reach the nameless mausoleum there and defeat my imposter, the Dancer of Rana. Bloodblade Dance works pretty well here, and it allows you to catch up to her after her annoying backstabs. And so the real queen of the dance wins this battle, claiming her prize, the Dancer set and the Dancing Blade of Rana. Look at her, doesn't she look stunning? Wearing all the pieces of the set enhances dancing skill damage by 10%, and the Unending Dance of our new pair of curved swords can last forever, as long as you have stamina to keep dancing. I'm excited to try it out, and who better to challenge to a dance battle than the local Divine Beast Dancing Lion. Upon collecting a few more Scado Fragments and Scado Altos, I faced the beast. With all the talismans buffing consecutive attacks, the damage of our Unending Dance stacks pretty fast, and the lion's resistance to slash damage is not the highest, so phase 1 is over in no time. I barely survived the onslaught that is the lightning phase, then sneak in a few moves while it's transitioning to frost. What I've noticed in this fight is that if the boss has a generous opening and you're too far away when you start dancing, you can actually close the distance while doing so, and sometimes even move out of its hitbox. In the end, the lion danced and cavorted, but could not outdance the queen. First DLC Remembrance down. Before returning to base game, I spent some time getting farmed by these Curseblade assassins. After I figured out better spacing, I spent some time farming these Curseblade assassins for their weapon, the Curseblade Cirque. Its skill, Deadly Dance, which consists of a spin and a follow-up jump, is also buffed by the dress. The tracking is dogshit though, just something to keep in mind. Back in Farum Azula, I prepared to engage in a dance at Troa with the Godskin duo. And you know what they say, you cannot dance if you're asleep. If you think I'm not gonna make this fight easier for myself, you're out of your mind. I carefully pick my moment to throw the sleep pot at their feet without dealing that one damage that a direct hit would do, and managed to sleep both in one pot. Deadly Dance puts Noble in his second phase in just 2 combos, and after he's done aggressively rolling at me, I finish him off with a third one. Now it's just one-on-ones, and poor Apostle here doesn't even know what hit him. Now, I decide to actually fight the rest of the lineup, and the Apostle that spawns manages to avoid my moves. Once he starts summoning, I fully intend to finish him, but Draken still dogshit, and I somehow jump past him on the follow-up, which puts me in a precarious situation. Once I get a chance to separate them though, it's all over. Apostle goes down, and Noble quickly follows. While it has proven its worth on duo, this is absolutely the worst skill to fight dogs with. Seriously, do not try this at home. Speaking of dogs, I make my way through Farm Azula, then take a short detour to get Opaline Heart Tier to prepare for another dogfight. Our good boy Beast Clergyman here is pretty aggressive, and he hits like a truck, and he loves doing his quick swipes. The slower weapon skills I have just won't cut it, so I bring out Sword Dance once again. It has enough reach, doesn't lock you in a lone animation, and it can be buffed with Bloodflame Blade for some helpful bleed procs. Even then, I still have to pick my attack windows carefully. The best are during his boulder throw and during or after the slow ground swipe. It all depends on your positioning. Malacat is a different story, however. Staggers are not an option, so I had to play very safe and mind my surroundings, otherwise things like this just happened. On the winning attempt, I outspace Malakat's usual opener to reapply my weapon buff, roll the ground explosion to end up close to him, and sword dance on his face. After that, I mess up quite a lot, but manage to recover while he lore walks towards me. The slow slam before his big AoE is another good window, and I manage to roll out of death by 1000 cuts in time. I still suck at timing my rolls to his projectiles, though. I make another mistake rolling backwards here and barely survive, but I don't let it get to my mental. Another slam, another opportunity. I somehow panic roll the same scary spin attack unscathed this time, while Malacat gets confused and takes the dance floor for some reason. I whiff one of my attacks, but roll the big flame swipe with him and get another couple hits in. Thankfully, after a short lore walk, he gives me 2 good attacks in a row, and with that, Malacat falls before the power of dance. I celebrate my victory a little too hard, and you know that feeling when you've been dancing all night at the club and you wake up tasting sand in your mouth? Turns out it's not sand, it's ash, and the whole club burned to the ground. Well, hungover or not, we have no time to waste because our next target is a waste of time. I knew I could probably obliterate Gideon with Bloodblade Dance without breaking a sweat, but I wanted to mix things up a bit and try Deadly Dance on him instead. It was at this point that I realized that for someone who uses weapon skills so much, my mana bar is tiny. And while Deadly Dance interrupts almost all of Gideon's bullshit, it also eats up stamina like crazy. Thankfully, Gideon decides to suck on an empty bottle right when I need to refill my blue juice, and with a couple more hits, he goes down. I'm just glad he never got the law of causality active. Imagine. At this point, I could have continued towards Godfrey Horaloo, but there's one more base game weapon I needed to acquire to collect them all, and this one is locked behind a few bosses. One of these bosses is Commander Niall, and his knights. My damage with Bloodblade Dance is high enough to delete the dual-wielding knight in just one combo with the follow-up, and for the second one I tried to bait his Shield Bash chump, but he prefers to lore walk at me, so I get impatient. It still works out in the end, and now it's just me and my dancing partner. I switch to a much faster sword dance and take my time to rebuff. But the problem with Niall is that at any point when I'm dancing with him cheek to cheek, he can do his quick frost stomp, and there's nothing I can do to avoid damage if I'm still in the middle of my dance move. Also, I'm just bad at dodging it. His scripted charge gives me ample time to sword dance at him twice and proc bleed, after which I just try to bait moves that are more manageable for me. I take a spear pole to the face a couple times, but nothing that can tarnish the grace of my dance, and eventually, Niall goes down. I collect both parts of the Halictree medallion and take the secret passage to the consecrated snowfield. There's just one last upgrade to our build here that I intend to get before going to the Halictree itself. I set up my talismans and physic to be able to wield Giant's Red Braid again and use Flame Dance to burn a rotten tree on a hill. Flame grant me strength and Fire Scorpion Charm really help this skill out, and while its speed is still its main drawback and this tree stump smacks us in the face a couple times, Flame Dance triumphs in the end, and I get the Thorny Cracked tier, which is another boost to consecutive attack damage. This tier will take a permanent place in my physic from now on. Ordina time! I hate this place. Having acquired a few piercings I have not consented to, I make my way to the Helic tree and down some really oiled up branches. I masterfully evade giant insects and a golden shower, make the local PETA representatives very upset, then make my way across rooftops to real Loretta. Finally, I can unleash the might of a fully buffed Unending Dance on a girl and her horse. Loretta gives you a huge opportunity to ramp up the damage at the beginning of the fight, and after that you just walk around her follow-up and slap the horse's ass. By the time she buffs for her second phase, it's already over.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
11 out of 10 would horse around again. Again. After this kind knight provided me with a shortcut to the bottom of Elfvale, I stumble into the wrong neighborhood. Then I grab a somber tent just lying around behind this rotten tree stump and prove that Bloodblade Dance is infinitely superior to the Flame Dance from the stupid giant braid. I pick up another somber tent and the Great Shield Talisman, then make my way to Malenia. So, Malenia.
Blade of Mikola.
I've only beaten her once, and that was with the pre-nerf Rivers of Blood. Yeah, I know. Feel free to boo me in the comments. I know her moveset decently well, but I still suck at dodging the dreaded Waterfowl Dance, and I have never managed to do it from close range. My dancing moves take some time to finish, and some, like Deadly Dance, have quite a lot of end lag, and if I get caught in a Waterfowl Dance while performing them, it's all over. I knew I had to prepare for a long and arduous fight, since I couldn't reliably stagger her with only my weapon skills. Or could I? What if there was a skill that could replicate the effect Rivers of Blood had on Malenia in that first playthrough of mine? What if I could outdance the ultimate dancer? This thing shreds Malenia's health bar. It shuts down all her attacks except those with hyper armor on them, like her roundhouse kick and waterfall itself. After 70% health, I had to manage my distance to not stumble into her Waterfowl Dance mid-combo. With this skill, you can move around some of her attacks mid-dance, and with the sheer amount of damage it does, chances are you'll never see another Waterfowl Dance in her second phase. With one final stagger and a full Bloodblade Dance to the face, Malenia falls, and I can finally take her hand. Not in marriage, I mean literally her hand. The Hand of Malenia and its skill Waterfowl Dance will be the final weapon I'm gonna be using in this run. Side note, while going to upgrade it, I realized I had all my Somber 10s still in my inventory, which means I had fought Malenia with a +9, not a +10 weapon. So, it turns out Bloodblade Dance could have shredded her even harder. With my full arsenal assembled, I decided to take some rest in this chill little tornado watching spot. And wouldn't you know it, there was a whole-ass dragon inside the tornado. Since he so rudely interrupted my sleep with his timey-wimey tornado powers, I decided to interrupt his and dance him into oblivion. This fight went without issues, since Unending Dance is still the GOAT for bosses with large attack windows. I created one final flurry of spins to prevent Blassie from doing his laser show, since I am very sensitive to flashing lights and one-shots. I hope there isn't a boss in the DLC that does exactly that. But before going back to the DLC, I still wanted to dance with the first Elden Chad himself, Horalu. My first idea was to use Aokade's Dancing Blade on him, dodging out of the final slash before he could retaliate. However, with this approach I ended up trading more than I would like to, so I changed my tactics and used Unending Dance. This worked better, as I could stop dancing and jump or roll his attacks at almost any point. I planned to capitalize on his transitions a little more, and I did manage to build up some damage during his first transition, skipping the rest of phase 1. In the second phase, I've managed to dance past his swipe like once, and barely survived a grab. But in the end, with one final slap on the butt, Horalu informed me that my strength befits a crown. Thanks, I never thought 16 strength was enough for that. With my way to the throne cleared, I decided to return to the DLC and deal with Remembrance bosses there, starting with Rulana. So, Rulana is fast. Her moves are not unlike Malenia's, but dancing with her in the same aggressive manner just won't work. Because unlike Malenia, Rulana has poise. You need to let the Moon Lady lead in this dance. So I played more passively, treating one spin of my Unending Dance basically like an R1. Whenever I tried to be greedy, I paid for it. That is, until phase 2. Once she went into transition, I danced as fast as my stamina allowed me, hoping to tank a hit but bring her health as low as I could. But to my surprise, she did the magic projectiles instead of the fire tornado, even though I was basically in her face. Since her swords for some reason don't have a hitbox during this attack, I just could keep dancing, unendingly, and delivered to her what I delivered to Loretta: death by 1,000 spins. I felt like this victory was more luck than skill, but you know what? We take those. Another Remembrance down, and it was time to go once again in the hole and face the thing I dreaded the most. Gravity. You know, if I got a nickel for every time this happened to me, I would have enough to build a gigantic Jenga tower of nickels and then accidentally fall off the Jenga tower as well. Oh hey, I didn't die. Oh hey, there's a creepy dude on a horse ready to fix that. Putrescent Knight is extremely weak to Holy, so for this dance I changed the affinity on the Uchigatana to Sacred, equipped the Sacred Scorpion Charm and the Face Talisman, and used Faith in Holy damage tiers in my physique. I did die to him a couple of times because I have trouble reading his weirdly delayed flailing, but once I figured out how to dodge his horse and spinny attack, I sent both him and his horse back to the glue factory. Sacred Sword dance was too much for this abomination, and I could move on to dance with better bosses. I tested Waterfowl Dance on the Ancient Dragonman the Invader, and then obliterated his boss version in just 2 full casts of the skill. I guess that's how Malenia feels when she deletes her health bar. I quickly got the scatter fragments locked behind Dragonman. Nope. I'm just getting the grace for Bale later. And now it's time to venture into the darkest chamber for the snakiest of dance bodies. For Mesmer, I chose to use Deadly Dance. At the end of many of his big combos, he just kinda lingers in place for a while, which balances out the end lag of my dancing moves nicely. I still died a lot here. I was trying to figure out when it's safe to attack and getting used to his delays once again. In one attempt that was going pretty well, I stupidly mistimed dodging his grab, panicked, greeted an attack when I shouldn't have, and predictably died. Also, for me, phase 2 was always harder than phase 1 because I suck at dodging the big snake attacks. On the winning try, the giant serpents and my own greed almost became my undoing. Twice. But with one final Deadly Dance, I cut Mesmer and his one-eyed snake to scaly ribbons for my point shoes. With Mesmer's kindling acquired, I could now burn the Silent Tree and proceed to any realm. The only thing standing in my way was Nachka 2.0, Saint of the Bud. I'm just kidding, I love Romina. She's very weak to fire, but I didn't trust the slow flame dance of the giant's red braid in this fight. It locks you in place, and Romina loves to move and attack you from unexpected angles. I chose to go with the old reliable Bloodblade dance, which conveniently also does fire damage, and can help you both move in to deal damage and move out of the boss's hitbox. Well, if you're lucky. I wasn't. But in the end, the fiery power of dance exterminated the admittedly graceful centipede lady, and I only lost like a couple teeth in the process. Moving on, I disregarded some pretty important fire safety rules and got sent to Hornsend jail for doing so. Upon arrival, I immediately got bullied by avians and yeeted myself off a cliff in embarrassment. Oh, and I got some skidoo for my troubles. While I was here, Leda invited me to dance with her and her companions. I was allowed to bring a +1, but I didn't know who this Nathan fellow was and whether he could even dance, so I went in alone. Remember kids, do not go to dance parties with strangers. Or do. I'm not your mom. For this party, I brought along the good old NPC Destroyer 9000, and it proved itself once again, allowing me to skip Dane's heal and leaving Leda with just a sliver of her health bar. Unfortunately, I was out of stamina, so I couldn't finish her off before she healed, but once I refilled my blue juice, the hostess was no match for my Bloodblade dance. Lovely dance party, Leda, but a bit lacking in drinks this time. Before daring to approach Mikila the Kind, I had some cleanup to do. I wanted to exploit the weaknesses of the 2 upcoming bosses, so I picked up the Red Hot Wet Blade in Redmane Castle, attuned my Uchigatana to Flame Art, and respecting to mostly Faith. Then, with the giant's red braid and Flame Art Uchi at my side, it was time to burn this mother flower to the ground. Skitutri Avatar is extremely weak to fire, and I wanted to use Flame Dance on a Remembrance boss somewhere, so it was time to whip it. Whip it good. The spiky sunflower is pretty chill in his first phase, so Flame Dance deals with it with very little issue. Remember, I am not allowed to use R1s within the rules of this challenge, so I cannot riposte it at the end of each phase, which means in phases 2 and 3 I'm gonna have to clear its full health bar. I also switched to the Uchi and use fire-infused sword dance in these phases because the flower becomes much more relentless. And guess what? Compared to a plus 10 somber boss weapon, the humble Uchi with right attunement absolutely chunks its health. Just watch this. With that much damage, I don't even need those crits between phase transitions. Needless to say, even with my mediocre whipping skills, this dance is over in no time. Commander Gaius is up next, and while he's very resistant to slash, which is the majority of my damage, he is pretty weak to holy. And like with Putrescent Knight, it is Sacred Sword Dance time. If you have trouble dodging his insane charge hitbox, you can hide behind this corner at the beginning of the fight and safely buff while he's running at the wall. And holy dance! He tried to use my old nemesis, the camera, against me, but I got out and I couldn't believe how much damage I was dealing. I've gotten pretty good at dodging his wombo combo, and it gives a good opportunity for damage. To my surprise, I could even light roll the charge. Once I dodged the phase transition, there was just enough time to do the full sword dance with the follow-up, and overall this fight was a breeze. As long as I didn't greed. On the winning attempt, I tried to not let the big number go to my head, but even when I failed, I somehow danced past his charged hitbox. And after chasing the flying boar a few more times, I sent Commander Gaius flying into the afterlife. Collecting some more tree bark near a giant bowl of invisible soup, I race back out of phase and into Arcane to give our Arcane Dance arts a chance to shine in their full glory. In Manus Meteor, an expecting mother dumped some astrology nonsense on me and asked me to go ring the bells of gender reveal. But once I returned, Ymir was gone and there was a suspicious ladder leading underground, so I went to investigate it. Instead of some super secret maternity ward, I found a bloodborne-worthy abomination made out of too many fingers. And remembering the lessons Rani taught me earlier in the run, I decided to do some finger and/or hand chopping. Meteor is weak to slash and very bleedable, so for this one I whip out my pole blade and full consecutive attacks and bleed setup. I tank the phase transition to try and get another bleed and a stagger, which happens right after, so I don't get to see her second phase and the deadly laser from outer space, which is nice. With Mummy Dearest dealt with, I go to report my findings to Ymir, who decides to greet me with a literal baby shower. But his bloodline is weak and cannot withstand the fiery Bloodblade dance, and neither can Ymir himself. Please do not invite me to baby showers or gender reveal parties ever again. To get to my next dancing partner, I needed to go through Jory in the Darklight Catacombs first. Now, the problem with Jory is that I cannot do the sensible thing and backstab loop him to death, and he teleports a lot, and once he starts summoning, the dance floor becomes too crowded for my liking, and I usually end up dead. On my third attempt, I ramp up the bleed damage and manage to get the stagger right before he teleports, and fortunately he goes for a melee attack right after, allowing me to finish him. In the Abyssal Woods, I pick up the final scatter fragments I need, get lost for half an hour, and then finally make my way to the Mance and Midra himself. Midra is my favorite boss fight in the whole game. He moves so fluidly and gracefully you feel like you're dancing with him, and the music you dance to is pure fire. Or should I say Frenzied Flame? In any case, I tried to fight him with Bloodblade Dance, but quickly realized that you absolutely cannot brute force this one. If you try and trade with Midra, you just get frenzied and die. So I only used the Leonoras to deal with Mini Midra and to quickly build up bleed while circling around his opening beams of madness. After that, I switched to an occult-attuned sword dance once again. I greeted a couple hits right after his transition, expecting another bleed, and thankfully it micro-staggered him out of his attack. Another sword dance during his wind-up depleted the rest of his health bar. I hope we dance again one day, you absolute madman. Now, who's next on our list?
Curse you, Bale!
Oh, right. Bale posed a problem for me. First, I tried Aoka's Dancing Blade. The corkscrew part does pierce damage, which Bale is weak to, and with how fast this dragon can counterattack, I had to roll out of the not follow-up slash anyway. This didn't go so well. The first problem was that I could only roll out at the very moment the corkscrew part ended, which didn't exactly line up with the timing of whatever Bale chose to respond with. A second was actually hitting him. With light roll, I often ended up a little too far from his head to hit him with an uncharged skill, and I didn't exactly have all the time in the world to charge it. Next I tried the occult Uchi and its sword dance, and the damage was respectable, but then I quickly ran into the problem of me whiffing my hits. Also, I was not in the mood to dance some crazy swing with the camera, in addition to the whole ass dragon. And then it dawned on me. I was trying to dance with Bale as if he were Midir, but he was no Midir. All I had to do was lock off, lock in, and make him bleed. That was some dirty dancing. I still can't believe my winning attempt was the one where I decided to switch to Bloodblade dance just for shits and giggles. After this, I think I need a break. Well, it seems rest is off the table. Before we proceed, I have a confession to make. I've only beaten Consortodon once. It was way back before the nerf, and his cross-slash combined with the blinding flashing lights got me absolutely tilted. In my frustration, I never really learned his moveset. I just wanted this awful fight to be over. But in this challenge, I had no choice. I really had to get good. I respect back into my original dex build, armed myself with a humble cold Uchi, and thus began my true training arc. It didn't take long for me to learn the first phase and all available attack windows. Minutes turned into hours, but with each death, each mistimed roll, I learned more and more, until I could get through his first phase without using a single flask. What about the second phase then? Once I figured out I could save almost all my heals for phase 2, I tried running in for his opening T-pose. I could get a guaranteed combo in and then block and tank the explosion. But in the end I decided against it. It wasn't even that much damage and I needed every flask I could save. In this phase, I did not risk to attack him after his grab, which would otherwise be a great opportunity, since he would often catch me with an instant cross-slash. For the most part, my attack windows from phase 1 carried over to phase 2, but I also found new ones, like after his huge promised concert combo or gravity meteor into clone attacks. Figuring out how to dodge all his insane clone attacks took me a while, but after 3 days of dancing, dying, and dancing again, this happened. What is this bullshit? I am literally in his face and he decides to do his gap closer? But no, what actually happened was this. somehow, over the course of countless hours spent dancing in his godforsaken arena, I've managed to outdance not one, but two gods at the same time. But even with this exhilarating victory, we were not done yet. All the Remembrance bosses are dead, so all that's left for me to kill, dance with until they fall, are Radagon and Elden Beast. Unless I'm forgetting something. Oh, right! So, I've been dreading this fight for a while now. Earlier in this run, I've entered the arena, noticed a weird-looking weapon offered by a corpse, picked it up, realized you cannot dance with it, and promptly discarded it. In this fight, I faced two main issues. First, Rykard has 89,613 HP, and second, he is surrounded by lava. On its own, lava doesn't do that much damage. It does, however, pose a different problem. Can you tell what it is? I've tried to bypass two issues at once by using the good old status stacking and performance-enhancing drugs. So what's the problem then? Sniff on some hardcore substances and dance like nobody's watching, right? Wrong. While statuses did prove effective against the Serpent, in Phase 2, if Rykard presses his I win button while you're still pumped full of nanomachines, you just die. I've been putting this fight off till endgame when I would have more damage and survivability, but then I realized I do have a skill that I won't be staggered out of by the lava even without the magic vapors. Aeokate's Dancing Magic Power Drill. This skill gives you enough hyper armor to keep shredding. I chose the Mariah's Executioner sword for this one because Rykard is not meant to be fought like this and he has weird hitboxes on his scaly body, so I wanted all the extra reach I could get. This worked beautifully and I outdanced the Lord of Blasphemy on my very first try, with this weapon at least. One obstacle remained between the Queen of Dance and her throne. Well, technically two. Radagon gives you plenty of windows to use a fully charged skill, unless he starts teleporting. Then you're in trouble. For Elden Beast, I went with the Hand of Millennia, which was pretty underutilized up until this point. It does a great chunk of damage to the boss even without the bleed, if you manage to do all three flurries at the start. Absolutely worth it to tank the fire for this. After that, you have to pick your opportunities more carefully, so you don't end up with no stamina right before Elden starts or the needle attack.
Oh no!
On the winning attempt, I had amazing Radagon RNG, but screwed up my spacing and didn't get the full combo on Elden Beast. I tried catching him up with one flurry while he was swimming away, then managed to capitalize on a couple bigger windows here and there, and with one final Waterfowl Dance, the god was slain. And with that, I have completed Elden Ring and its DLC using dance skills only. The Dancing Queen took her rightful throne, Miyazaki got his coveted feet shot, and I simply rejoiced. It was my first ever challenge run, and while it may not be the most difficult one out there, for me it was very special. Elden Ring is my comfort game, and by making it very uncomfortable for me to play, without having access to heavy and jump attacks, without relying on staggers, I have learned a lot about this game and myself. I had a lot of fun during this challenge, and I already have another one in mind. If you made it this far, consider giving this video a like and maybe subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.
I need to dance! No, I need to lie down.